What is going on, everyone? We are here with another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. We're almost at 70 episodes, folks. So y'all know the drill at this point is we're just here having a good time, finding some new artists and listening to some new music because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about hearing these artists perform their songs and hearing their story through music. So today I have Noah Garner here. And Noah, how are you, man?
Good, man. How are you?
And not too bad. I mean, obviously, when we were setting up the interview and stuff, and we were just talking about it, I was actually just down in Nashville for the first time this past week. So I was just living that up and just enjoying life right now, man.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad that you had a good time down here.
Yeah, no, we had a blast down there. So we stayed near the Grand Old Opry for a couple of days, and then we moved downtown for a couple of days, and it was just so cool just to get the whole experience in and just meet a lot of people down there and see a lot of old friends that I've had on the interview series and stuff like that. So just a super cool time. But I'm happy to have you here, man, and I can't wait to hear your story through music today.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me on.
No, of course. So I always just like to jump right into the first question because it really just sets up the whole interview and it's the basic of basics. But where did music kind of start for you, singing and playing wise? Because sometimes for people, it starts the day they were born. They start humming nursery rhymes and all that fun stuff. But then I like to compare it to someone like myself, as I really only started the songwriting, producing, and like the podcasting back in 2018. So that's like really like it just kind of it hits people in all different places and when they start. So just where did everything kind of come about for you?
Well, depending on who you ask, like if you ask my mom, she'll say that started the second I could talk, I started singing.
Mm-hmm.
I realistically, at about 7 years old, I picked up my first guitar and I started picking around. My grandpa taught me how to play, and it was always something that was a part of my life. And then I'd say about 16 was about the time I started getting really, really serious about it and started getting gigs around town where I was living at the time. Uh, and then from then on, it was, full speed ahead.
Yeah, no, it's history after that is usually what I like to say is like, because people like always, how'd you start? And I'm like, well, it started back in 2018, then it's just been history ever since then,
I
just
love it.
been trailing away. And I mean, it's crazy to think about sometimes just because 2020 is really when I started this whole series, and that's how this whole thing came about. And I'll never forget Joe Mayo, who's a rapper and definitely a good friend of mine. And it's crazy how that started in 2020, and now here we are in 2022, and 70 episodes later, I've met all different artists from all over the world and from all different genres. So it's super crazy how stuff just kind of takes full action throughout your life.
Exactly, man. Once you find something that connects to you and it becomes your dream and your passion, I mean, it's hard to turn it off.
Exactly. And I mean, music's always been there for me. And this is going to kind of get into the next question, is definitely talking about inspirations. I always just like to say is Garth Brooks definitely a big inspiration for me, but then also my all-time favorite artist is Chris Daughtry. So I mean, the two of them just together singing and songwriting and their vocals and stuff like that really just always inspired me. And country music has really always been there for me too. Like that 90s, early 2000s is what I really grew up on, and just stuff like that. So my question kind of for you is, who are some inspirations that like you kind of really look up to in the music business?
Yeah, man, Garth is definitely up there. Garth
Yeah.
is in the top for me. I love him to death. He's kind of where a lot of my stage persona comes from. But beyond that, I mean, it's hard not to say George Strait. It's I don't know. He's just so iconic, so great. It's hard not to want a career that's as phenomenal as that.
Exactly.
Uh, Beyond that, man, Eric Church is literally probably one of my favorite songwriters of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, said everything I've ever wanted to say, exactly how I wanted to say it. And then Steven Tyler is another big inspiration for me. Love the showmanship of Aerosmith, man. I love the songwriting process he had. I've read a bunch, books on them, and I read the book, his autobiography, and I love his life, his story, his creative process. It's such a wonderful thing to kind of learn from and try to implement in my career.
Exactly. No, and that's awesome. I mean, it's just there's so many inspirations out there. And I mean, we could sit here for hours probably just rattling off all kinds of different artists. But
Well, it's funny to
um
bring up Daughtry because I love Daughtry too, man. Like
I
it's
mean,
just
yeah, he was listen, I mean, ever since he was on American Idol and stuff like that. And then I mean, he's just ever since day one, really, like when he released his first album and all that, it's just he's always been like my number one go-to guy when I need to listen to some music. And then I finally actually just got to see him this past year for the first time. So it was just super cool to see
so
that. And just he's such a talented artist, whether he's doing acoustic sets or if he's doing full band sets. I mean, he doesn't have a bad show ever.
Nah, dude, he's phenomenal.
Yeah. And kind of going back to what you said about Eric Church, I mean, he's just a hell of a songwriter, and that's kind of lead into this next question is about the creative process, because there's no wrong or right answer to this question, and there's no rhyme or reason to the songwriting process, because I forget what episode was it. I can't remember what episode of the Spotlight it was, and I forget who I was talking to now because my mind's all mumbled. But we were saying like it's like there's no book on how to write a song, because if there was, then everyone would do it.
Exactly.
And I always have to shout out Garrett Walker, who was on the show, and he said this quote perfectly: is the songwriting process is like a puzzle. Whether you have 500 or 1,000 pieces, you kind of have them all scattered around and you figure out where each piece fits. So slowly you start putting the border together, you start putting the middle together, and by the end you have this full masterpiece, this full thing that you're like, okay, this is what goes where. And then you have it and you can share it with other people throughout your journey and see what they think about it. So what is your creative process like when it comes to writing songs? Because I was just listening to a bunch of them earlier today, and I mean, obviously I've been listening to them for a while, but just what's the creative process like for you?
Man, it kind of depends. I play and I kind of sit down with myself and think about what, is going on in my brain at least an hour a day by myself if I don't actually have a co-write scheduled out and stuff like that. Um, it's kind of I just check in and I try to be as honest as I can with myself. What's going on in my world? What's going on in my brain? Where am I emotionally? And I try to be as honest as I can. So I'll sit around with my guitar and I'll just kind of play just anything until I find something and I go, oh, I like that. And I'll sit and I'll go, what is this making me feel? What does this make, like, where do I hear this going? And then once I get that kind of going, I go, awesome. How do I tell my story in this? How do I implement things that actually happened to me, things that I've said, events that, occurred that are true to my life, that are at the same time universal, that I think everybody went through. And that's kind of like where, everything kind of comes from.
No, and that's awesome. I mean, especially I'm going to touch up on one of your songs is What is Heaven Like? I mean, obviously that song is true to your heart, and it really just it tells your whole story, and it means a lot to me because that's how I wrote my first ever song, was about losing my grandfather back in 2018 suddenly and stuff like that. And that's just really how I got into the music business. Is I just said, you know what, I sat there one day like a month or two afterwards, and I wrote this whole song in like an hour and a half, just because I sat down, I was saying, this is how I feel right now, I need to get this out. And then it happened after that. And that song really hit me when I heard that. And that's how I actually found you, was seeing that song and reaching out and stuff like that. Cause it hit me different. And just the storytelling behind that is just so powerful.
Yeah, brother. I mean, life has a way of doing that to you, like that kind of shock and that kind of, uh, event to go through there's no way to describe it without just kind of putting pen to paper, one way or another. Everybody grieves differently. I just happen to grieve by picking a guitar.
Exactly. And I mean, that's just how it happened for me too, is just playing the guitar, writing it down. And then eventually I reached out to my good buddy, Nathan Vasquez, and we put it all together. And then obviously 1+1=2. And we figured it all out, because if I start singing, glass will start breaking and all that. But that's why I stick to the pen and paper, and I have the professionals stick to the guitar and the vocals. But it's just the storytelling aspect behind songs is just really what gets me and what really draws me in to have artists on the show. So it's songs like that phenomenal songwriting on your part, and that's why you're on this show today, and that's why we're talking about your story through music.
Thank you so much, brother. I really do appreciate you saying that.
No, of course. So now to kind of get the wheels turning a little bit is always the fourth question, and it's always my favorite question. That's why I always say, like, thank God I'm the one asking the questions, because I don't know if I could even answer this right now. But there's hundreds and hundreds of artists out there on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, just trying to make a name for themselves. Obviously, the struggle of promoting music and promoting what you're doing and stuff like that. So you know that there's other artists out there trying to one up you and say, hey, like this is what I'm doing compared to what this guy's doing. But at the end of the day, what do you want people to really take away from your music, and just what makes Noah Garner Noah Garner?
What a dang golly. I think for me, it's all about genuine connection to people. You know, music was always my way of expressing myself when I didn't know how to. It was my way of saying things I didn't know how to say. And it was my way of getting through everything. You know, like you go through hard times, you go through something that's tragic, you turn to music to kind of feel better. And then even at your best times, you turn to music to make those good times 10 times better. You know, like you put on your happy tunes and it will turn your whole day around. And so I think I want people to take away the fact that I really put out, I try to put out myself in a way that I want to connect. It's about the people. It's about you guys. You know, it's about listeners and fans and not in a fame sense. Like it's not about being famous. It's about I want you to hear my songs and go, oh, that's what I wanted to say. Oh, that's how I felt. Oh man, that makes me feel better. Thank you for that. Like because that's what it was always about for me. You know, it's I only write songs about the things that happened to me. You know, like,
Exactly.
that genuine connection of, hey guys, this is what happened to me, and it's okay to feel this way, and it's okay to be there. It's okay to not be okay sometimes. Let's about it. Let's connect about it. Let's try to feel overall better in the long run, you know, through the musical process.
No, exactly. And I mean, that's just a perfect answer. I mean, definitely, I not to bash anyone, but I mean, I always like hear so many different answers when it comes to this, but that's definitely one of my more favorite answers as of late to that question, just because that's definitely why I connect with you. And I'm like, it just sometimes it just clicks like halfway through the interview. It's like, okay, this is why I had this guy on here today, because you just answered a question like that. And it's just, at the end of the day, yeah, fame and everything would be great down
Yeah.
the road. Like who doesn't want that? But at the end of the day, realistically, is if you can connect with the one person, or you can connect with those two people out of a million, then to
Right.
me that's an accomplished day right there, is just to connect and have that genuine feeling with other people.
Right, exactly. I mean, you never know how much you really impacted somebody or changed their life just by having a song. I mean, it could really help somebody.
Exactly. And it's always just one of my favorite questions. That's why I always love asking that one. But kind
Great.
of looking towards the future now, is obviously you have a lot of songs out. Obviously you're writing a lot, you're co-writing, playing gigs down in Nashville, obviously, stuff like that. But what are some of your short-term and long-term goals, and just what else can we kind of expect from you down the road?
Yeah, so in the short term, it's more of getting out on the road more. It's a lot, you know, I want to be able to play as many different states, as many different cities, and as many different places as possible. We're trying to go international a little bit, so we're trying to get over to England and a couple other places, which is working out, and that's wild in my own brain. I can't even think about being over there and people actually listening in a worldwide sense, but it's happening and it's so cool. So the goal is to get out to those people that are listening and just play as often as we can around different people, you know, because it's always nice to play in Nashville. I love it. I'm never going to stop doing that, but it's always great to connect with people that are outside of that. And then in a long-term sense, it's we're defining my sound, you know, a little bit more each time you go in, record something and you put something out, you're redefining, you know, your sound a little bit more, and you're getting into that pocket a little bit more. And I think that in a long-term sense, I'm trying to reimagine what country rock kind of looks like in a way. I feel like everybody kind of follows a little bit of a template, and I want to kind of make that template just that much wider, you know, with you know what I mean? So
Exactly.
that I would say that those are the goals right there.
Yeah, no, and I mean that's awesome, man. I mean, because I always live by this quote: is you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So I mean, it's so cool that like the stuff is panning out, that you might be going over the UK and all that fun stuff like that. And just, I mean, I feel like I don't travel that much, but like just throughout the interview series and stuff, I've interviewed people from the UK, over in Australia, in Canada. Just I feel like I've traveled all over the world. And to me, even though I'm doing it right here at home, like it's just so cool to have that. And that's some of my goals is like, okay, like can I make it to an artist over there in the UK? Like, will they come on this series? Will they come on from Australia, Europe? Like just from anywhere. So it's always cool to hear what the short term and long term goals kind of are for the artists.
Absolutely.
So obviously that concludes all the questions I got for you, and it always gets to the fun part of the interview is hearing something from you. I
Yeah, bro.
will kind of put myself on mute. I'll kind of let you take the floor if you want to just let the people know what song you're going to do and a little bit about the song. And other than that, man, the floor is yours.
Yeah, brother, absolutely. So I'm gonna grab this old guitar here. It's kind of, you brought it up earlier, so I think I'll do What Is Heaven Like, just because it means so much to me, and it was the latest one we put out. And for those that don't know yet, I wrote a song about my dad. I lost my dad when I was 9, and the only way I know how to deal with stuff like that is to, write it out. And this is what came out of it. So it's called What Is Heaven Like? Like this. 10 years, and I ain't got a phone call. 10 years, we ain't shared a beer. And I can't believe that it's been that long. 10 years, you've been gone. Now everybody says that I look just like you. That's good by me, 'cause I always wanted to. And so, Daddy, what is heaven like? Is it really just beyond where the sun shines? Is it like the good book says? Do you hear the prayers me and Mama send? Do you think I'll make it up there so I can see you again? Since you left, you never left my mind. So, Daddy, what is heaven like? I've got a girl now. I really think you like her. You always knew just how to pick them out. The crazy thing is, she says when she looks at me, she sees a love like you and Mama had. So, Daddy, what is heaven like? Is it really just beyond where the sun shines? Is it like the good book says? Do you hear the prayers me and Mama send? Do you think I'll make it up there so I can see you again? Since you left, you never left my mind. So, Daddy, what is heaven like? I just hope and pray that there comes a day when I have some of my own. 'Cause if I'm half the man you taught me to be, then I know I'll have a damn good run. So, Daddy, what is heaven like? is it really just beyond where the sun shines? And is it like good books? Do you hear the prayers when mama sing? Do you think I'll make it up there? Cause I wanna see you again. You know, since you left, you never left my mind. I hope you like it there on the other side. So, Daddy, what is heaven like?
I mean, it's just, I mean, it's a song. I mean, I'll tell you that much. I mean, it's more than a song. It just, there's not a lot of words I can say about that one, man. And it means a lot that you did do that one. And I appreciate that. And again, man, I'm just a huge fan of yours, huge fan of your songwriting and what you're doing. And I just can't wait for more stuff to come from you.
Oh, brother, thank you so much.
No, of course. So obviously, kind of before I do my little outro here, where can people go find you on social medias, just so we can check that out? Obviously, I know you're on Spotify, Apple Music, and all that. So that was What Is Heaven Like? But obviously, you have so many other cool songs out, so people definitely go check those. But where can we find you on some social medias?
So it's Noah Garner Music on everything. Noah, Noah, Garner, Garner Music, just like that on everything. And you can always check out what we're doing at noahgarnermusic.com.
Perfect. I mean, plain and simple. Love it like that. Obviously, I'll be sending some links out when I post them on Instagram and stuff, so y'all can click on those and go check Noah out and stuff. But definitely go check him out. Definitely go check that song out and all that he has to offer, because he is definitely doing things right and he's just killing it right now. So Noah, again, thank you, man, for coming on the show, and appreciate you being here. So obviously that concludes another episode of the Spotlight series hosted by yours truly, ACK. Y'all know the drill is Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We have new episodes, new music, new artists, new stories. So y'all stay tuned for next week, and thanks for tuning in today.